Traders, welcome back to another Trading Mindset Masterclass. Today we are discussing a hugely important topic when we come and talk about trading mindset and mastering your trading psychology, and that's all about emotions. In particular, today we're going to be discussing what emotions are, how you can interpret emotions and you can use them to your advantage, and how to master your emotional state. Because as you've probably realized this far into your trading journey, once you have a trading strategy and once you're tasked with the job of coming to the market and executing consistently, there can be a lot of emotional volatilities in both ways. Sometimes you can experience extreme manic emotional states when you make a lot of money, and sometimes you can experience the complete opposite swing of extreme depressive emotions when you take losses. And both sides of the coin need to be mastered. You need to know how to manage your emotions just as much when you win as when you lose, because those two emotional states are entangled. And the more addicted you are to that positive feeling of winning and that manic dopamine state, the more losing is going to be painful, and the more pain you're going to have associated with that, because you're not getting what you're desiring. So in today's masterclass, it's going to be a pretty intense masterclass. So be ready to take notes, be ready to go through and stop the YouTube video and think it through. Some of the topics and ideas I'm going to share with you are going to be maybe counter to your current beliefs. I encourage you to go through this masterclass with an open mind. If you've already been through my 12-week program, this is a great masterclass to come back to just to refresh. And you guys already know the tools in week 5 in particular, and you've already been doing the application. So this is a great additional theory to that. And then obviously maybe a little bit of accountability to do more of the work as well. Let's get into today's masterclass. It's going to be a big one. It's going to be one that's mind expanding, and I have no doubt in my mind you're going to finish this masterclass with a new perspective on your emotions and trading mindset. So let's get into it. Now, there's a really great quote that I love. I've kind of paraphrased it a little bit. Warren Buffett, he says, don't expect to control your money unless you can control your emotions. I like to say, don't expect to manage your money unless you can manage your emotions. Either way, both true. Don't expect to manage or control or have any level of mastery over your money if you can't manage your emotions. Because if you don't know how to manage the resentment and infatuation, the pride and shame, the fear and greed, you're going to be run by your money. You're never going to run your money. And so many traders are either greedy over or fearful over money because they're infatuated or resentful towards money. And as a result, they're run by money, because whatever you are resentful to, you fear gaining, and whatever you're infatuated with, you fear losing. And it's that state of fear, the external fear, that runs your life, and it runs you, and it runs your trading. But those traders who see money for what it truly is, just a neutral means of fair exchange, and they've learned to understand money, and they've studied maybe a little bit of the history of money, and they understand where it comes from and how it's been developed in societies throughout time. Those who understand money, they realize that money is just, it's a neutral means of fair exchange. It's been established to ensure that we can have fair exchange in society, and they're not judging money good or bad. And those who have had experiences over money that have been good or bad, they've learned to address those and manage those and expand their awareness of those situations. So they're no longer judging money as good or bad, but they see it for what it truly is. And in that state, when you see money as balanced and neutral and having advantage and disadvantage, you no longer fear the gain of it or fear the loss of it. And in that state, you can almost stand above it and manage it effectively. Okay, that's ultimately the state that I get each of my students in the 12-week program to. That's ultimately the state where you can start building consistent profitability as a trader. Okay, maybe a few tangents in this masterclass, but they're good. Understanding emotions, 101, let's get into it. Your emotions are not bad. I don't want to give this impression on this channel or in my programs. I don't think I do necessarily. I think maybe indirectly I do. When we talk about mastering your emotions, that doesn't mean get rid of your emotions. That doesn't mean be emotionless. What that means is learn to understand and interpret your emotions. So your emotions aren't bad. Traders should not seek to remove them. Traders should seek to understand them and learn how to interpret your emotions. This masterclass is about teaching you what your emotions are and how to interpret them. Your emotions are a biological feedback to make you aware of an incomplete awareness. So when you perceive in your environment, in the markets, that there are more advantages than disadvantages in this moment. In my mind, in my awareness, I perceive 3 times more advantage than disadvantage. I can see 3 times more positives than I can negatives in this moment. You're going to label that experience as good, positive. You're going to have a positive emotion. You're going to have infatuation. You're going to have pride in that moment. And you're going to have that feel-good chemical dopamine released in your brain. And in that moment, your emotion, the positive emotion, is a result of an incomplete awareness, an awareness that is skewed to the positive side, more positive than negative, okay? Or you can have a perception of this event has more negative than positive, maybe 3 or 4 times more negatives than positives. That's what I see in this experience. Therefore, I'm gonna label it bad, negative, resentful, and shame. This is probably why throughout your life you've had an experience where you've maybe labeled it good, a positive experience, an experience of growth, yet someone who's gone through that exact same experience as you has perceived it in a slightly different way, and they've called it bad, negative, and something that stunts their growth. In other words, what happens out there is not necessarily the issue, it's how we perceive what happens out there. And you have to understand that we take stimulus into our mind and we compare that to a lot of things in our brain, and then as a result, we have our interpretation of that event. So part of mastering your psychology is realizing that our personal reality, what we perceive and what we interpret, is very different to actuality, what's actually out there. And the more you can align your reality with actuality, the more you've mastered your trading mindset. Okay, so your emotions are not bad. Your emotions are a feedback of an incomplete awareness. So to just summarize this whole page here, okay, I'm angry or I have resentment in this moment. That emotion in that moment is a feedback, oh, I'm seeing drawback without advantage in this moment. I'm seeing more drawback than benefit. I'm seeing more disadvantage or more challenge or more pain than I am advantage, pleasure, benefit in that moment. The actual emotion is the feedback that you have an incomplete awareness. So too in reverse, oh, I'm feeling really good in this moment, really positive, really up, really infatuated in this moment. That's the feedback that you're seeing more benefit than drawback. Okay? Now, how can we be certain of this? Well, whenever we go through and we take an event that we perceive as bad and we have anger or resentment to, and we go in there and start finding the benefits, we look at what the benefits are. We don't make them up, we don't try and justify that event, but we just have a look at what the benefits are, the benefits that have been there but we've been blinded to, and we start to see the benefits in that moment. That event goes from being something that we resent, to now that we've seen an equal amount of benefits and we've seen how that event has helped us towards our priorities, towards our values, and we see that we've co-created that event because now this event is helping us in terms of the priorities that we currently have in our life, then we can go from a state of being resentful to that event to being balanced and present with that event and seeing that event as something that we're grateful for now. And the way I know that emotions are an incomplete awareness is because the moment you go in and complete your awareness in that moment, you no longer have a polarized emotion. You're present, you're poised, you're grateful for that event, and you see it as something on the way, not something in the way. Okay, so that's something that you can come to the conclusion of by doing the application. Now, the neutrality of the markets. From the market's perspective, every winner has a loser. Every loser has a winner. Okay? Very philosophical, I know, but it's true. From the market's perspective, if you see from the market's perspective that stands above, from the market's perspective, the loser over here is combated by the winner over here. So the loser is going to label that event bad, but that simultaneous moment, the winner is going to label that event good. But from the market's perspective, which stands above, it sees both sides of the equation and it labels it neither good nor bad. It sees it as a neutral event. It just sees it as an exchange. So from the market's perspective, every winner has a loser. Every loser has a winner. From the market's perspective, the outcome is neutral. It's neither good nor bad. It's neither win nor loss. It's neutral. It's just an exchange. It's a transformation. We only label something a loss when it runs counter to our idea. We only label something a loss when we narrow our mind and we only see one side of the equation. And in that moment, we had an idea or an expectation of what we thought was going to happen in the market, which is it's naive, which is why I say don't set outcome-based expectations. And in that moment, the market did whatever it wanted to do, but it didn't align with our expectations. And in that moment, we're only labeling a loss because it ran counter to our expectations, to our ideas. Or what else could happen? Because from the market's perspective, the outcome is neutral. Therefore, you have to ask the question, where did I start believing that losing is bad? When did I start buying into that? Maybe it was when you were younger and you had maybe experienced, this is from my perspective, I can see numerous moments in my mind of, especially playing sport early on in my life, where losing was condemned. And just the language used around losing, or bad luck, or you're condemned, or you had to work harder, or you were reprimanded, or you weren't rewarded when you lost. So from a very early age, you get programmed into thinking that losing is bad, losing is negative, and we have associations to losing. So what could also happen is we take a loss in the market, we take that neutral event into our perception, and we compare it to all those experiences of the past that are subconsciously stored in our brain. And that loss in the market reminds us of a loss early in our life, maybe in a relationship or in a business or in sport, whatever it was, or in academics or whatever it was. And as a result of that comparison, what happens is all those negative associations resurface in our mind. And as a result, we're labeling our loss in our markets bad as well. This is why I believe that trading mastery and life mastery are inseparable. If you want to master your trading mindset, you have to learn to master your life mindset. And this is why in a 12-week program, every single student who goes through that recognizes that we're not only talking about empowering your trading, but we're talking about empowering all areas of life, because you can't separate them. And if you're disempowered in areas of life, that's going to impact your trading. Okay, so another tangent, I know, but we only label something a loss when it runs counter to our ideas, or if we take the neutral event in and compare it to subconsciously stored baggage of the past where we have associations of losing equals bad. And so too, we only label something a win if it runs in the direction of our idea or our expectation, or if we take that event, that neutral event, because remember, a win from the market's perspective is a neutral event. If we close our mind or we narrow our mind and we only see the positive, the winning side of that, we ignore the other side of it, then we take that event in and we compare it to all the subconsciously stored events in the past where we have pride over winning, and we were rewarded for winning, and we were celebrated for winning, and we have all this dopamine associated with winning, then what's going to happen is we're going to label that event in the market as a win and as good and as positive, and we're going to want to seek after that like an animal, which is going to cause issues, as we're going to discuss very shortly. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is that the market is neutral. From the market's perspective, the market is seen as neutral. So you have to ask the question, where did my beliefs over winning and losing come from? Why do I see losing as bad? Why do I see winning as good? Where did that come from? That's one thing to really have an awareness of. So winning and losing are relative states of mind based on our stance, on our expectation, and based on previous experiences. Winning and losing are relative states of mind based on our stance, based on our expectations before we go into that position, on what we think is going to happen next, and based on our previous experiences of winning and losing. Do we have pleasure, do we have pain associated to them? Okay, hope that makes sense. Now, it's only in our mind that we choose to make the market's movements either good or bad. And this is what I'm trying to communicate here. The market itself is neutral. For every winner, there's a loser. But what happens is we take a stance in the market. I think this is going to go this way, and I'm putting risk on. And if it goes this way, I'm going to make all this money, all this percentage. I'm going to pass this funded account. My friends are finally going to like me. All these positive things are going to happen as a result of the trade going in this direction, so we think in our mind. And when the market runs counter to that, the market is still making neutral moves based on the market's perspective, but because in our mind we've then taken that in and it's run counter to all our expectations, we feel betrayed by the market. We feel resentment to the market. We feel anger to the market. But that's not the market's doing. That's our own interpretation, our own expectations, our own bias, and our own anchoring points that we've inflicted on the market. So this is what I was trying to say before. There's a very big difference between what's actually happening, actuality, the real market, and what's happening in our personal reality in the virtual market. And the more those two align or in sync, the better results you're going to have. And the more you can learn to turn off the virtual market and be present with the real market, the better results you're going to have, the greater consistent profitability you're going to have, because you're actually listening to what the market's trying to communicate. Now, the problem. What's the actual problem we're trying to address here? Well, we're disrupting our own edge, but both losses and wins are an essential part of consistent profitability. Okay, both losing and winning, both taking losses and wins in the market are an essential part of consistent profitability. Why? Because consistent profitability is a sample space. It's an edge. Over 100 trades, you're going to win 60 of those or 70 of those if you have a really high strike rate. So based on being a profitable trader, that whole 100 sample space, you're going to have to both win and lose. That's just part of the game. Now, I believe it's true that a trader should seek to minimize losses and maximize wins. Those decisions, however, need to be made based on processes and data, not out of fear and greed. So some traders think that, if I neutralize fear and I neutralize greed, then I won't be able, then I'm going to take big losses and I'm going to keep my losses. I'm going to add to my losses and I'm not going to take big wins. No, that's completely counter to the idea. The whole idea here is you transcend winning and losing, fear and greed, the outcome-based thinking, and you refine your trading plan to make process-based trades and process-based decisions of what to do in certain situations to minimize losses and maximize wins. And as a result, you're still making the wisest, most profitable decisions, but they're process-based. They're not based on how you feel in that particular moment. They're not based on fear and greed in that particular moment. Okay? So both losses and wins are an essential part of consistent profitability. But if you're positively emotional after you win and you puff yourself up into a state of pride, into a state of greed, what's going to happen? You're going to think you know better than the market, you're going to expect to win, and you're going to project a low quality setup onto the market. You may not even be listening to your trading plan at all because you feel invincible based on that previous win, based on that pride, based on how much money you know you can make as a trader. And what's happening is we're projecting low quality setups that aren't even part of our plan. We're disregarding our plan, we're disregarding what's happening in the market, and in that state, we're disrupting our edge. And if we're negatively emotional after a loss in a state of shame, fear, we're too fearful to act when the market presents an opportunity. We're minimizing ourselves. After wins, we tend to exaggerate ourselves. After losses, we tend to minimize ourselves if we're not able to manage our emotions. So in this state, we're not giving our edge permission to play out because we're not consistently executing on anything. We're not consistently executing on an edge. We are trading based on fear and greed. So in an ideal world, in an ideal situation, we learn to manage and quiet down fear and greed, and we just consistently execute on our trading plan, listening to the real market out of the virtual market in our head, and as a result, in that state, we're approximating our edge. And that approximation of that edge is going to include both wins and losses. But we're okay with both wins and losses because we know that's part of the game, that's part of the edge. That's the mindset we've developed. That's the ideal. That's where everything I teach ultimately helps you get to. Now, that is something that traders have achieved and they get to that state, but don't think that you're just going to get there and not have to maintain it. These traders continue to work incredibly hard using the tools and the principles I pass on to stay in that state. So, in both emotional states, positive and negative, a trader is taken away from their processes, their edge, and that kills their ability to make consistent profitability. This is why I said at the start of the video, don't expect to manage your money unless you can manage your emotions. Okay, now what's the solution? Do this. Firstly, traders must train themselves to utilize the emotion itself as feedback, okay? What does this mean? Like we said at the start, the emotion is feedback of resentment in this situation means that in that moment I'm seeing a negative without a positive. So what I'm saying is that you have to train yourself to whenever you experience that emotion, recognize it's the feedback. I'm angry, I'm resentful in this moment. Therefore, I'm seeing negatives without positives. So a negative emotion, you're already aware of the drawbacks. You want to be asking yourself, because you've used your emotion as feedback, I'm already aware of the drawbacks. What are the benefits in this moment? I've just taken a loss. I'm resentful to that loss. I've used that resentment. Okay, I'm aware of the drawbacks. I'm aware of how this was a disservice to my priorities and my values in this moment. What are the benefits in this moment? Well, the benefit is I stay teachable, I stay open. I continue to have that drive to continue to learn and study and refine to show up tomorrow and be diligent and be following my processes. Okay, great, that's a great benefit of taking a loss. What else is another benefit? Well, it's a reminder of the true risks in the market. Therefore, a reminder to be accountable and stick to the high quality setups in my trading plan. Great, that's another benefit of a loss. What's another So you're using the negative emotion as a feedback. I'm aware of the drawbacks, and then you're asking what are the benefits in that moment. And the moment you keep listing true benefits in that moment, and you get to a state where the benefits equal the drawbacks in that moment, which is possible to do, because you wouldn't be registering the drawbacks as bad unless you're comparing them to the unconscious benefits in that moment, then the emotion won't be there when you get to a state of benefits equal drawback, because the emotion is only there to make you aware that you have an incomplete awareness. So too, you experience a positive emotion. I just took a win. In that state, you're aware of all the benefits. What are the drawbacks in that moment? Well, the wins push me into a state of feeling invincible, and I go to lower quality setups in my trading plan, or more proud in front of my friends and family, and I think I'm a bit of a, And what's another drawback of winning? Okay, and you keep listing the drawbacks until you learn to self-regulate and you learn to manage yourself, so you don't need to be humbled by the market. You humble yourself so you don't need to be humbled by the market. So expanding your awareness in that situation will remove the emotion, and it will get you in a state of feeling present, aware, and grateful. You don't become numb, you become present and aware in that situation. Okay? Now, also do this. Your emotional state after a trade is heavily influenced by your expectations prior to that trade. Therefore, traders must focus on going into positions having grounded any outcome-based expectations. And by the way, this solution here, I teach the in-depth process and the tools, and I give you the accountability, and I give you the one-on-one coaching necessary in the 12-week program. We cover this in detail and make sure every trader knows how to manage fear and greed, pride and shame after trades, so they can get back to that state of equilibrium, that state of self-regulation. You get access to me, questions, one-on-one, all that type of stuff to ensure you understand it. Now, you need to manage your expectations prior to the trade as well. And you need to ground outcome-based expectations. The way you do that is by using the Bulletproof Your Mindset tool. It's a free tool in the description below. And what that tool is going to help you do is it's going to help you have an awareness of what type of expectation you're going into the market with. And it's going to help you identify outcome-based expectations from process-based expectations, catch the outcome-based expectations so you can ground them before you get into that position. And that's really key. Okay? So those are two major solutions that will help you manage the emotions that you experience in the market. Please implement them and start using these tools that I pass on to you. I promise they're going to make a difference in your ability to achieve consistent profitability, and they're going to make a difference in your emotional state as well. You're going to be less stressed, you're going to be less frustrated, you're going to get better results. Hope this was useful. We also have a free email trading mindset mastery domination email series. It's linked in the description. You're going to get access to emails every day, every second day from me that are going to help you master your trading mindset and dominate this game to ensure that you can go off into the markets and achieve consistent profitability. If you find these videos useful, please like, comment, subscribe, share them with friends. Let's get this value out there so we can grow. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Cheers.